The dog had stopped barking an hour ago. Now he only stood there, one paw forward, shoulders squared, tail low but rigid. Something about the stillness was louder than any growl. His ears twitched in the silence. He wasn't watching the woods. He was watching the house. The wind came from the east, dry and crawling, stirring the tall meadow grass that sloped behind the cottage. Above the tree line, an owl let out a long descending call. A second owl answered, but not from the trees, from the old weather vane atop the barn roof. And both of them, with unblinking yellow eyes, faced to the back window. The lights inside had been off for hours. Nobody moved. Not the man who had built this house with his brother back in 1963. Not the woman who, in her last winter, had arranged violets along the sill and kept the clock radio playing even after the power lines went down. Not the crib. That part was hardest to see. The nursery had been cleared years ago, but the space remained. Not the furniture, not the paint, just the space. As if something once watched over there, still pressed against the air, refusing to be moved. And that was where the dog stood, squarely between the backstep and where that crib had once been. Not protecting it, guarding it. The distinction mattered. The dog's name was Oscar, though no one had said it out loud in days. A heavy mutt, something between a shepherd and a ridgeback with wide shoulders and thoughtful eyes. He belonged to no one in the house now. Technically, he belonged to no one at all. He had shown up after the fire when the Eastfield still smelled like smoke and a single scorched pine stood black and stiff against the morning frost. He hadn't begged, hadn't whimpered. He had simply lain down under the back porch and watched the window through which no child had looked in decades. Tonight, he did not lie down. His weight shifted forward. The owls were silent now, still facing the house, still unnaturally close. A branch cracked not far off, not hidden. The kind of sound that comes from something too heavy to mask itself. Oscar didn't flinch. But he didn't look toward the woods either. He glanced behind him, toward the glass, not for orders, not for reassurance, as if checking that nothing inside had changed. Inside the house, the hallway smelled of wax polish and the old iron radiator that never truly worked. A dim nightlight buzzed over the sink, its reflection caught in the back window, turning the glass into a kind of mirror, one that showed the outline of the dog, standing motionless, and behind him nothing but the owls watched still. From the thicket beyond the field, something exhaled. It wasn't a growl, more like the steady breath of a large animal, waiting, thinking. The owls ruffled slightly. One shifted its talons on the metal edge of the roof but didn't turn away. Oscar lowered his stance, just a fraction. Not out of fear, more like readiness. A flicker of muscle rolled through his shoulder as his paw dug slightly into the dirt. To the south, down the slope where a rusted barbed wire fence once ran, a figure appeared, just a shape, barely distinct from the trees. Upright, slow-moving, too distant to be heard, too close not to be seen. Oscar turned toward it, but not all the way. He kept the angle of his body slightly diagonal, still tethered to the house behind him. The shape did not call out. It did not quicken its step or try to be seen clearly. But the owls both shifted now, leaning slightly toward it, heads cocked, not with hunger, not with alarm, something more like recognition. Oscar's breath shortened, not a pant, not panic, more like someone preparing to hold their breath. His tail lowered to the earth and stilled. His eyes tracked the figure, but something about his body, the refusal to leave his post, the refusal to bark, made it feel less like protection, more like obedience, or memory. The figure stopped, still in the shadows. The moon caught on what looked like one sleeve, frayed at the edge. One arm rose, not in greeting, no movement that slow is meant for humans, just lifted, gently, toward the air between the dog and the house. The crib, once there, had been handcarved, soft pine, no paint, just wood. It had no memory of screams, or lullabies. Just silence, and the silence tonight felt familiar. A gust moved through the field. The grass bent low, then rose. The owls did not fly. They remained eyes fixed, now not at the house, not at the man, but at the place between. Oscar didn't move. His body blocked a thing that no longer existed, but he stood like he remembered it, and in the faint reflection of the glass, just for a moment, a second shape, small, low to the ground, barely formed, seemed to flicker behind him, then gone. It began to snow, just lightly. Not enough to coat the grass, only enough to make the air feel dense, like breath held in a long corridor. The flakes drifted sideways under the wind, catching briefly in Oscar's coat, melting before they could settle. He didn't shake them off. His posture hadn't changed, still facing that shape near the southern tree line, still tethered by instinct or duty to the quiet place behind him. The figure had not moved. Its raised arm lowered slowly, almost imperceptibly, and disappeared into the folds of a long coat or shadow. Whatever clarity the moon offered was gone now, obscured behind a gray veil of clouds. The figure remained just on the edge of form, neither fully hidden nor fully revealed. Then it turned, not away, not toward, but sidelong, beginning a slow arc through the lower edge of the field, following the slope without sound. Oscar tracked it with his eyes, but again did not follow. His front paw, tense for so long, finally shifted. Not forward, backward, a half step toward the house. A thud came from within. Not loud, more like a dropped object, dull, deliberate. A sound that doesn't surprise but unsettles. Oscar turned fully now, facing the back door. His nose lifted toward the seam between the frame and the night. He didn't bark. He pressed his body lower, more cautious now than defensive. Inside, the lights remained off. No footprints in the thin powder of snow that had begun to gather on the window ledge. No signs of intrusion. But the scent had changed. Oscar moved toward the door and touched his nose to the gap beneath it. Something faint, familiar, faint again. Then the sound came again, a second thud, but further in, this time from the hall. In the hallway just past the kitchen entry. An old baby monitor, the kind left unplugged for years, lay tipped over on the floor. Its small light flickered once. The plug hung loose from the wall, as if it had been pulled without care. The cord lay in a gentle curve, not tugged, not yanked, just wrong. Near it, a single paw print, not Oscar's. Smaller, too small for anything that had walked these woods in winter. The print led nowhere. It started there. Outside, the snowfall thickened. The owls had vanished. Oscar backed away from the door. His ears pinned slightly. He turned again toward the south slope. The figure was gone. Nothing moved in the tree line. But something had changed. The night felt less contained. The lines between inside and out had blurred. Oscar stepped forward, cautiously pawing the ground once, as though checking the surface of something new. He moved down the slope, slowly, sniffing the air. His movement was not pursuit. It was following, but not the figure. A trail of something less physical. Scent memory. Fear mixed with sweetness. Ash and milk. It drifted like smoke that doesn't rise. The path led to the remains of the old fence. Most of the posts had rotted through. Barbed wire curled up like withered vines. One section was marked with faint indentations, as if someone had passed through recently, brushing gently against the brush. No torn fabric, no broken twigs, just the soft suggestion of transit. Oscar paused there, lowered his head, then sat. He didn't bark, didn't howl. Instead, he began to whine, low and drawn, not like a plea, but a remembering. The sound trembled up through his chest and out into the frosty air, and then stopped, as if even memory had a limit. From the woods, something answered. Not a voice, not an animal call. The sound was movement, slow and dragging, footfalls too uneven to be confident, too steady to be aimless, something not lost, but wounded. A soft crunch, then another. Oscar rose again, his posture now uncertain. He took one step forward, then two. His body language flickered, toward readiness, toward concern, back to hesitation. He froze when the shape returned, but it was not the figure from before. This was smaller, four-legged, limping. A coyote. Thin, one side matted with blood, dried almost black against its ribs. Not fresh, not fatal, an old wound reopened. The animal kept low, dragging one paw, its breath short and huffing. It stopped several paces from Oscar. Didn't growl, didn't retreat. Oscar didn't approach. The coyote stared at him, its body tense but not postured for fight. It looked past him once, toward the house, then back into the field, and then, impossible to explain it, sat. Its ears flicked forward. Its eyes stayed on Oscar. Then it did something strange. It laid down, not on its side, not in submission, but almost in mimicry, like a dog waiting beside something that wasn't there. Its nose pointed toward the empty slope, toward the house, toward something else. Oscar didn't move for a long time. Then, he turned, slowly, and walked back toward the porch. The wind picked up behind him, scattering the thin snow into spirals. The coyote remained where it was, unmoving. Inside the nursery, the monitor light blinked again. This time it stayed on. A low fog had rolled in by morning, clinging to the low places between the trees, thinning only where the dry grasses bristled above the frost-hardened earth. In the half-light, the fence line vanished and reappeared with each breath of wind, like memory flickering in and out of reach. Oscar stood just beneath the porch awning, his coat speckled with melted snow, his paws dirty from the long watch. He hadn't slept, not fully, not since the night before, when something had shifted in the air and the light. Inside the house began to pulse like a heartbeat through the old baby monitor. The coyote was still there, lying where it had settled. A shallow bowl of snow had formed around its body where the heat of it resisted the cold. Its injured paw was curled beneath it now, hidden. Its ears flicked occasionally, but it had not moved to flee, nor to approach. That fact alone had changed the air between them. Oscar stepped down into the frost, careful as if sensing the line he might cross. He didn't walk straight toward the coyote but arced wide, skirting the field's edge near the brush. His body was no longer tense, but alert, like a dog who's learned that something wounded may still bite. The coyote's eyes followed him, but it remained still. Even as Oscar drew closer, it neither rose nor bared its teeth. Its breath came, slow and visible, lifting in little plumes that hovered before vanishing. Around it, the frost glinted in dull light, not quite sun, but something lighter than night. A few paces from it, Oscar stopped. They stared at each other a long while. Not with challenge. Not quite with recognition. Something in between. The kind of quiet that exists between two animals who have waited in the same place too long. The coyote gave a single blink. Then, with great effort, it shifted. Its shoulder dipped. Its paw slid out. Blood had frozen at the fur's edge, cracking. As it stretched, Oscar didn't flinch. Instead, he turned and walked a few steps back toward the house. Then stopped, looked back once, sat down and offered not of help, just presence. The coyote's breathing slowed again. Its gaze drifted not to the dog, not to the house, but to something neither of them could see. Its ribs rose and fell unevenly, as if the pain wasn't just from the body. The wind picked up, and somewhere behind them a thud echoed from the trees. Not loud, but deliberate. It came again, not a footfall, more like the steady knock of something wood on wood. Oscar turned. Toward the sound, eyes narrowed. The coyote's ears pinned back. Then came a second noise, lighter. Inside the house this time, a shuffle, then silence. Inside, the baby monitor had gone quiet again, but near it something had changed. A fine trail of dirt now led from the back door to the hallway. Not muddy, not walked in, just placed, like the settling of dust disturbed. Not heavy enough to have come from boots or paws. Near the end of the trail, barely visible, was a single item resting on the floor, a pacifier, yellowed with age. One side nicked. It hadn't been there the night before, and no one had touched the boxes in the attic for years. The window above the sink had fogged from inside, as though someone had breathed against it, then stepped away. Outside, Oscar had risen again. He had not approached the door. Instead, he was looking north, away from the coyote now, away from the house, toward the overgrown path that led to the orchard ruins. The coyote stirred. With effort, it stood. It limped forward 2 paces. Then, stopped and turned, not toward Oscar this time, but toward the same northern path. They had both sensed something. A third sound, this time unmistakable. The creak of the rusted swing at the orchard's edge, still tethered to its beam. It hadn't moved in years. Not since the last of the fruit trees fell to blight. Not since the young couple from the next valley stopped visiting. Long before the woman grew pale and the crib sat untouched. But now it creaked, slow and rhythmic. A movement that could only come from weight, or wind made purposeful. Oscar looked back at the house once more. He did not go to the door. He turned and began walking toward the orchard path. Behind him, the coyote limped forward, step by labored step, until it followed the same direction. Not because it trusted, because it knew that whatever had drawn them here was not finished with either of them halfway down the slope. Oscar paused. There, beside the overgrown hedgerow, half buried in leaves and thyme, lay a second collar. It was small, too small for him. The name tag had rusted over, but Oscar didn't sniff it. He just looked at it. Then the coyote, still behind him, gave a low, uncertain growl, not of warning but confusion, as if it too recognized something that shouldn't be here. From the orchard, the swing creaked once more. The orchard path had changed since Oscar last walked it, not in shape, but in feeling. The grass here was short, brittle underfoot, as though the ground had pulled itself inward during winter. Every step pressed a crease into the earth that did not spring back. The swing creaked again ahead. Steady now, as if timed to something unseen. Oscar moved slowly. Not from age, not from caution, something subtler, as though walking into a place he was not sure still remembered him. The collar behind him remained untouched. The coyote stood beside it, head lowered, hackles twitching with indecision. Blood from its paw had left faint specks on the leaves, a trail not of movement, but hesitation. It limped forward again, but now stayed behind the dog, its earlier stillness replaced by a kind of restrained urgency. They passed the fallen fence post where the orchard once began. Now, just a suggestion of a boundary, softened by ivy and thyme. The swing came into view. It was not swaying now. It hung still, chain slack, the plank angled slightly to one side. But beneath it, in the frostbitten grass, something new had appeared. A shallow depression, like a body had rested there, recently enough to leave shape but not warmth. No prints, no trails, just the faint curve of weight, as though the air itself had once settled there. Oscar approached but did not enter the space. He circled it once, then looked to the swing. It creaked again, not from motion. The sound had returned without cause. He looked up. No wind. The coyote gave a single bark behind him, sharp, unfamiliar. Then it sat, suddenly, roughly, as if overcome by something internal. It turned its head to one side and pulled at its injured leg with its teeth, not in pain but frustration. The blood had begun to seep again, darker now. The exertion was too much. Still, it didn't lie down. It stared past Oscar. A third figure had entered the orchard. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a predator. It was another dog, thin, lighter. Its ribs showed in the curve of its flank, but its eyes were clear, not sick, not wild. A collar dangled loose around its neck, a tag clinking softly with each step. Its movements were slow, deliberate, but not uncertain. This dog had come here for something. Oscar stiffened. He didn't growl, but the fur on his back rose. The coyote, tensed, leaning slightly forward, injured paw hovering above the dirt. The orchard, long quiet, seemed to hum now with a distant sound. Not wind, not leaves. Something duller, like water moving far underground. The new dog stopped beside the swing. It sniffed a depression in the grass, then lifted its head and looked toward the house directly through the trees, as though it could see past them. Oscar stepped forward. The two dogs stared at each other for a moment that felt stretched, not intention, but recognition. Something passed between them, not familiarity, not welcome, something older, like remembering the echo of a scent once carried in rain. The newcomer turned and walked toward the back field, not hurried, not waiting. Oscar didn't follow the coyote. Stood again. Its limp had worsened, but it moved past the swing now, drawn forward. It paused only briefly to look back, not at Oscar but at the impression in the grass. It sniffed it once, then lowered its head as if in some muted form of respect, not ritual, something closer to grief. Behind them, the sky had lightened, but the sun did not show. The fog had thickened in its place, swallowing color and edge. The swing creaked once more, not from movement but from weight that had never left. Oscar turned and trotted back toward the path. The orchard had nothing left for him. The coyote hesitated, then followed, and the dog, the one with the rusted tag, was gone. Back at the house, the monitor had gone dark, but near it, beneath the kitchen table, a second trail of fine dirt had formed, this one leading not to the hallway but to the cellar door. It had not been opened in years. The cellar door was ajar just slightly, not wide, not inviting. A kind of forgetful open, like something once meant to remain sealed, had been disturbed, not by force but by the slow erosion of time. The trail of fine dirt curved down toward it like a whisper drawn across the floorboards. Oscar stood at the threshold, his paws just outside the frame. He didn't sniff, didn't bristle, he simply stared. Behind him, the fog pressed lightly against the back porch, quieting even the wind. The coyote lay curled beside the rusted vent pipe, its body finally stilled. Its side rose with breath, but barely. The bleeding had slowed. The paw now tucked beneath it was no longer held in tension. It had followed as far as it could. Oscar stepped inside. The cellar had a low ceiling and smelled of old plaster, iron, and the dry husks of insects long dead. Wooden shelves lined the walls, most empty now, save for a few jars of spoiled preserves, and a tin box with no lid. Cobwebs hung between beams like soft threads of memory, never cleaned, never quite collapsed. A single string light dangled overhead. UNLIT. In the far corner stood something covered in cloth, small, square, not recent. Oscar approached, footsteps echoing faintly across the cement. The cloth was frayed along the hem, a child's blanket, blue once, now colorless, threadbare in the middle. He didn't touch it. He just stood there, close enough to see beneath the edge where the corner of a wooden crib leg poked out. It hadn't been removed after all, just hidden. There was no sound, no light, only the quiet awareness of presence or its absence. Oscar lowered his head, not in grief, not submission, just an act of acknowledgement, of something long misunderstood. He turned and climbed back up the cellar steps, slower this time, but not hesitant. The coyote had not moved, but when Oscar reached it, he didn't stop. He kept walking toward the field. The fog parted slightly as he moved through it, revealing the same northern slope where the orchard had been, the place where the rusted collar still lay untouched in the grass. He passed it. The snow had hardened into a soft crust beneath his paws, cracking gently with each step. The air was thinner now, clearer. From the trees, birds had begun to stir, not with song but with rustle, the subtle kind that marks a shift in season. Behind him, the coyote lifted its head, no longer watching the house. Its body remained, but something in its posture had released. It did not follow. It didn't need to. Oscar stopped at the edge of the tree line there. Beneath a row of frost-burnt evergreens, the ground bore signs of something faint. An old den, collapsed at the center. Not recent, not used, but not abandoned either. He stood at the rim of it, then lay down beside it, not to rest, to stay. The wind stirred his coat gently. No birds called. But far off, not from the woods, not from the house, came a creaking sound, no longer rhythmic, not from a swing from rope, unlooped. Time undone. Oscar closed his eyes. He did not rise again later. When the fog fully lifted, there was nothing left to disturb, which his paw prints through the field that led north and stopped in a quiet curve, as if the earth had decided that was enough. The collar still lay by the orchard, its tag unreadable. And in the house, the monitor light no longer flickered, but beside it, resting on the floor as if gently placed, was the child's blanket, the same one from the cellar, unfolded now, clean of dust, smelling faintly of lavender and smoke. The coyote rose once more, limped to the porch edge, and sat facing the north slope, not waiting, just looking. Above the house, the sky had cleared, and with it, the owls returned, circling high, no longer watching the windows, just passing through.